Hey, everybody. The conversation in college football today is what's going through the brains of the College Football Playoff Committee. Because the Final Four and the rankings after the Final Four going into the final weekend of college football's campaign came out last night. And look who's number one. That would be Georgia. And Michigan and Washington and Florida State are your four. And that makes sense. They're all the 12-0 teams. We can have a conversation about the order of that in a second. And then you've got a quartet of 11-1 teams. And that's where we start to talk about the order of these things. Oregon is at 5, and Oregon plays Washington for the Pac-12 championship on Friday night. They're first up. That's a pretty darn big football game, I would think, certainly because Washington and Oregon's first contest was one of the best games of the year. Washington won that at the very end, and Oregon is, I think, maybe playing some better football since then than Washington. But that won't matter when they play each other on Friday night. And one would think the winner of that game is in because Washington's 3 and Oregon's 5. And whoever wins that game will either stay put, depending on other results, or if Oregon wins, they go up to 3, and Washington would be out. That looks like that's in for a college football playoff spot. Texas, which beat Alabama, is above Alabama. Now, that makes sense, right? Because Texas beat Alabama. Texas is 7. Alabama's 8. But look who's 6. Look who's 6. That would be The Ohio State University. I want to be respectful.
Why?
Because
at this point,
they're The Ohio State. That's what they wish to be called. Even though they're home on the couch this weekend, they are at 6. While Oregon plays for the Pac-12 championship and Texas plays Oklahoma State for the Big 12 championship, and then Alabama actually gets to play Georgia. 8 versus 1 for the SEC championship. And Florida State plays Louisville for the ACC championship. And Michigan plays Iowa for the Big 10 championship. Now then, Oregon sitting there at 5 and Ohio State at 6, above Texas and Alabama. So does that mean, again, if Oregon wins, they're in, Washington's out. And if Florida State, with its backup quarterback, which has not proven to be a ton of clean football for Florida State, but all that matters is the clean sheet under the L column for them. Does that mean a Florida State loss means Ohio State is welcome to the 4th and final playoff spot since they're at 6 right now? Mm-hmm. All that needs to happen is perhaps out of all the results to happen this weekend. Alabama beating Georgia, Texas, losing to Oklahoma State, for instance, Michigan losing to Iowa, and Florida State losing to Louisville. What's the most likely of those results? If you had to place your marker, this is most likely to happen. I think you'd place your marker on Florida State losing to Louisville, right? More than Michigan losing to Iowa.
Yeah.
Okay, Georgia losing to Alabama. That's likely, but is it less or more likely than Florida State losing to Louisville? Oregon beating Washington, Washington losing to Oregon, Texas losing to Oklahoma State. The most likely result, 100%, you cannot dispute this, is that Ohio State will be home on the couch this weekend. Outside looking, watching television as everybody else competes for its conference title. Are you telling me that's what it is? Because if that's what it is, you've got to be kidding. And this has nothing to do with me and my school, 0.0 to do with it. It happens every year, it seems, where somebody that's sitting at home can potentially make the college football playoffs over a team that's not. sitting at home. Because if that's the case, if that's what they're indicating, that right now there's only one team separating Ohio State with the college football playoffs, I think that's nuts. I think that's totally nuts.
And I understand why you think that's nuts, and it is nuts on the surface. But I think Ohio State, this is just my opinion, I think they're kind of locked. They're locked here. They don't have any other games to play.
I'm aware of that.
And so Texas, by winning, don't you think they would jump them if Florida State loses? Because they're playing.
Then why aren't they in front of Ohio State right now?
I don't know. I'm not on the committee, Rich. It'd be great if I was. I'd have to miss a few more
why not
days.
put Ohio State at 8?
I'm not sure because, Ohio State was undefeated. Texas and Alabama had losses.
They now have the same number of losses.
But you're going to drop them all the way from 2 to 9?
Why not?
I don't know. That seems like a pretty big fall for a team that's been really good all year.
So then you place them in a spot where they believe they're better than Texas and Alabama.
Maybe right now, today, on November 29th. But
right.
After this weekend, if Texas and Alabama are both 12-1,
right.
12 greater than 11, their wins better than Ohio State, so they would be higher.
So are you saying there's an entity out there that ranks teams on a list and takes a look at where they rank them maybe lower currently than the teams that they're mixed in right now, but certain results
just come out, just come out and say what you're saying. Just say it. Like
this is the way I do my power rankings.
Instead of
they're his.
That's what I'm saying. It's exactly the way I do my power rankings you have a problem with.
Power rankings.
That's exactly what's going to happen in hour 3 when you're going to be chirping at me
I do have
doing
a
my
problem
power
with
rankings.
By the way, I bet you have the Ravens higher this week. Rich.
You bet I do. You bet I do. That's coming in hour 3.
Okay.
I want to wait now.
So the college football playoff committee.
I'm not saying that I don't have a problem with this list. I mean, clearly I wouldn't have Ohio. I don't think Ohio State, if they played Texas today or Alabama, they'd probably lose. But they also can't go anywhere. They don't have any more games left.
Exactly. But why put them where they're putting them other than to indicate all that has to happen is the teams in front of them lose and they're first up to go.
I'm not looking at it like that.
How can you not?
Well, because like I just said 2 other times, like
the college football
Texas
playoff
and
committee
Alabama have games left, so they can get to 12 wins. Ohio State is stuck at 11. They're not getting any more.
So 12-1 beats 11-1.
I would and winning your
11-1
and winning your conference championship.
It should.
Yeah.
Then why don't you indicate that going into the weekend? What's the point?
I don't think it matters.
You're just giving Ryan Day an attaboy? Are they just Are they really just taking the Ohio State team, circling around them, and then I guess the college football playoff committee would be blowing a whistle while they all hop up and down to keep them hyped? Is that what's happening? Like, honestly, why else are we doing this?
I'm not here for your pettiness, but like...
I am.
Me too.
You are?
Yeah.
But
where am I? Am I Lori? Am I Richard? Am I Tom? Where am I?
You were Richard, man.
I just think it is what it is. This year is a real unique situation because, we've got a team that's been undefeated all year who is now without one of their best players. So I wouldn't say the committee is hoping that they lose to Louisville to make it a little bit easier. But
and let me tell you why Michigan's 2, in my estimation, and not 1, even though they have beaten fewer ranked teams than Georgia, and they have just come up with the win of the year in all of college football against the highest ranked opponent anybody has faced in college football and beaten them, and clearly is valued so much by the committee that they've placed them in front of 2 teams competing for their championships this year, and you believe will be fixed where they are. This is just like an attaboy, you're 6th, no matter what. Okay, be that as it may. The reason why I believe Michigan is at 2 and not 1 is because Georgia's won a billion games in a row, and they're 2-time defending champs, and they're giving a tip of the cap to them. And I think they need to keep Michigan at 2, because what I think they're setting up is for, if all results do happen, they want to have a Rose Bowl, which is hosting one of the national championship semifinal games, as an actual traditional Rose Bowl before the rest of the world ends, as we know it, in college football with 12 teams next year and no Pac-12 anymore, and have a contest like an old school Rose Bowl, Pac-12 champ, Big Ten champ. That's what they want. And then they'll have an old school Sugar Bowl in New Orleans, SEC champ, Florida State. Like that sounds like
Yeah,
Bobby Bowden should show up there.
Or
you know what I mean?
Texas, maybe.
Or
if Florida
Texas,
State loses.
correct.
Sure.
Like that's what they're looking for in the college football national semifinal games.
And those would
in
be the
New
four
Orleans
best teams,
and in
for
Pasadena.
sure.
That's what I believe they're trying to set up right now. Because they don't want Georgia and Alabama to play again in the first round of the playoffs.
No.
And they don't want Michigan and Ohio State to play again in the first round of the playoffs. So they got to set this thing up, which is what I'm saying, is they're setting it up. And you're saying they're setting it up to have one of the teams competing for the Big 12 and SEC championship games leapfrogging a team that's at home. And I'm saying they're setting it up to put Ohio State in. And if I'm Texas, at least they're above Alabama on this list. They beat them. So that's the whole point. It's just like what's deserved and what's best. It's a bunch of nonsense, which is just give me the 12 games or 12 teams already.
Yeah, but
give me the 12 teams already.
I think
just enough of this. This is so stupid.
You're right. And by us having this conversation, we're doing what the committee sets out to do every single week leading up to it is create some kind of debate. It really, the only thing that matters is the ranking on Sunday.
Right.
The final ranking.
And how to view this. Is this a roadmap to how they view the rankings to come based on the results they expect? Or do they just throw it in as a snapshot for the moment and lead it to be discussed?
Yeah, that's
I do my power rankings.
I don't want to defend your power rankings because
Please do, because you
I think they're kind of bogus. But I guess to be consistent, they are a snapshot of the moment, which I think this college football ranking.
And they're mine.
I mean, they are yours.
How do I get on the committee? You want to be on the competition committee? Great. I'm for that.
Guess what?
Put me on the college football ranking.
You can have it. You can have it now because it doesn't mean anything anymore.
Oh, wow.
Because it's what is it going to be? It's going to be arguing about who the 12th team is in.
That's a big deal.
Who's the sixth at large, which will mean something. That's what we'll be discussing next year.
Home games. That matters.
Bye weeks.
Yeah, that matters.
Home games matter. Come on.
But that made no sense to me. And one last thing, you want me to talk about the elephant in the room, which you thought I was talking about?
That's what I thought you were talking about.
No, I was talking about I'm defending my power rankings, not my school. Yeah. But in all honesty, you bet I don't want to face Ohio State again. 1,000,000% I don't want to face them again. I said that last year, and I'll say it again right now.
Oh, yeah.
Because you do not want to face another team twice. Ask the Philadelphia Eagles. Do they want to go to Dallas in 2 weeks if they couldn't? They just want to say, we beat you. That's it. End of story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hell no. You don't want to see a diehard rival a second time with your plays that you already put out there. You don't want to do that. Yeah. And guess what's going to happen in the future? This will happen at some point.
Yeah, you said this earlier, and
Michigan,
I was kind of like, whoa.
Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia. Just name any diehards, right, in the same conference. Because in the new setup, with 12 teams coming, they're still keeping the conference championship games.
I don't know.
So it's entirely possible, because it's just going to be, say, in the Big Ten, one huge mosh pit. Michigan and Ohio State will play in the horseshoe next year, right? And the winner of that game and the loser of that game, it won't matter. They're both going to the Big Ten championship game because the rest of the league doesn't have as a conference as good a record. That you'll know going into that final game.
That they're just going to play again.
It's just like one of those Week 18, old school Week 17 games that you know you're facing that rival the next week. And what does it matter? And you don't want to show them everything. And you go through all that. And then the conference championship game will be just for seeding and who gets a bye. And then you play them. You'll both go to the playoffs, and you might play for a third. We might see college football rivals play 3 times in a year. That may be coming up. So if the issue was reversed,
I don't like that.
Would you want, like, if Georgia plays Alabama in the final game of the year and they're playing each other in the SEC championship game,
and then
would you want to see them again? No. Hell no. You want to see them for a third time?
No thanks.
Of course not.
I mean, unless these games are awesome. And
well, but you have no rooting interest. You don't want to face a team a second time. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.